Anybody wants to find a seat, we'll go ahead and get started this morning. I want to welcome everybody this morning. My name is Randy Griffin. I'm with the Environmental Analysis Unit with DOT in the pre-construction unit. This morning we heard a common theme yesterday. One of the common themes we heard out of all of our speakers yesterday afternoon had to do with digital delivery, automation, doing more with less. And I know there was a lot of plugs put in for this particular presentation that will actually be given again for those who can't be here this morning, this afternoon. But the first presentation that we have is the automation of the PS&E checklist. First up, we will have Lee Wing, who's our Director of Division of Planning and Programming, Brian Kettner, Division 7, and then Leilani Paul with the it's got Environmental Analysis Unit, but you're the new Program Support unit. So we want to welcome them this morning for the information they're going to share with us. Lee? And we will have question and answer at the end. So.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. So I'm just going to give a quick, brief intro to explain, why this topic is so important. So let me get the clicker. Make sure I know what I'm doing here. There we go. All right, so why is it so important that we modernize the PS&E checklist and the turn-in? So I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but when we go to let a project, you obviously have to advertise it first. But in order to advertise it, the project needs to be funded. And so when we go to do those funding authorizations, we need to know that that project is ready to go. Do you have everything that you need, your final plans, your permits, your certifications, everything that's required to make sure that we are ready to get that project let? So that's what we're calling the PS&E checklist. And so we need to make sure that each one of these projects has all of those pieces of information gathered and together. And so that's where Brian and Leilani are going to talk about how that process is being streamlined. But it really is very important. Project delivery is something that is obviously very important to the department, and it's a core priority for our secretary. So we want to make sure that when we are advertising these projects, we're ready to go. One of the other things to talk about is federal aid funding. So when we go to request our federal aid funding, I think most of you know that we have to run our request for funding on the board agendas, item K and item N, and that happens through my shop. But when it's federally aid funded, we also have to go to FHWA and request funding. And so they need to know that we have a completed PS&E checklist as well. We have to make sure that we are following all of our applicable federal requirements and funding so that we can get it authorized. And I think some of you are probably accustomed to being able to get what we call conditional approval. You've got everything except for maybe one permit that you're going to get any day now. So previously, we were able to work with our local FHWA partners at the local division office and gain that conditional approval and move forward. But that has changed recently, so those requests actually have to go to their headquarters, I always call it HQ, up in DC to get approval, and that can take several months. And so by the time we go through that process, you probably have what you needed in hand anyway. And so those conditional approvals are pretty much a thing of the past. And so we have to make sure that everything is complete when you are going to do those funding requests. So this is a memo from our Chief Engineer, Patrick Norman, who is standing in the back there. So this is to talk about how we are modernizing things for PS&E that they're going to go into detail in just a minute. And it's going to be starting with our September 2026 let. So uploading our PS&E deliverables through this Atlas workbench, which they're going to go into detail about, is going to provide tracking and reporting to help the department ensure that these critical PS&E deliverables are submitted on time and the delivery of our 12-month let list from a funding and completeness perspective is achieved. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who knows a lot more about this than I do.
That's a bold statement.
No pressure, Brian.
All right. Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? Good. Thank you for being here. As mentioned earlier, if your friends don't make this session, there's another one this afternoon. So if you want to get double down, I expect Nicole to be here in the second one also. So how does modernization help? First, this started out as a pilot program to modernize and automate the PS&E checklist. And as a former project manager and project team lead and now project development engineer in the division, I can tell you that the PS&E checklist, if it's used correctly, is a roadmap for successful PS&E turn-in. Um, I'm sure most of you in the room has either been a part of the 12-month let list or the 15-month let list meetings, and you're getting asked questions. Do you have your agreements? Do you have these things? And sometimes you do, and sometimes you're like, I think I do, but I'm not sure, and so you're scrambling, right? And so the whole purpose of this is to automate this report to help our project our project engineers and things be more efficient, and you have a data source that shows you yes or no that we have it. There is no question. The other piece of that is how many of the room have either a project manager or a firm work for different divisions had to go and hunt and peck on connect sites for different deliverables by a show of hands. A bunch of us, right? So the whole purpose of Atlas and the automation is the standardized file naming and storage. And so and we'll see here later in the presentation of how that's going to automatic generate the PS&E checklist. So there is no guessing where files are and things of that nature. Previously, without this tool, you had to come up with your own means and methods to have a checklist or a spreadsheet or things of that nature. This is using, Power BI and other technologies. This is going to automate that for you and take all the guesswork out and the human error out. Another piece that's very critical, especially in the divisions, is we do division purchase order contracts as well as going through Nicole's unit through the central contracts. And, you talk to firms and talk to people, and there's a lot of differences on how that looks. That should not be the goal. We should be very consistent across the department. And so this helps that process be consistent. So if it's originally planned as a DPOC, and then all of a sudden because of budget constraints we have to go through Nicole's group, all the information is the same, and so we're delivering a consistent product for our contracts folks. Once again, if we're not hunting and pecking and looking for different items, and do we have this or where is this stored, things of that nature, it just makes those processes faster and more efficient for staff that have a lot of stuff on their plate. So kind of reiterating from a big picture project development perspective, like I said, really it comes down to efficiency. The other thing is as that PS&E checklist is starting to be automatically generated, it starts to pop up and show you where the deficiencies are. Either I don't have my railroad agreement or I don't have my utility certification, things of that nature. It's going to be very obvious that it is or isn't there. And then as we heard yesterday from the chief and other folks, the goal is to get to a consistent, predictable 12-month let list. And so this is going to help us get there and also be very, clear and transparent of where we are or aren't in our projects. Once again, I think it's important to reiterate that, we, in my division at least, I want the deliverables turned in to my contracts office the same as it goes to Nicole and her group. And so we want to be able to be dynamic, and we want to be able to make, change, kind of be shift on a dime, so to speak. So what is the role of the Atlas Workbench? I'll be honest, Leilani, when Atlas first came out, I was a little bit, hesitant about it, just because most of us work in a world of, we use pre-con on a daily basis, and we store all of our files there and all of our draft files, and then we have to go back and then, upload our final deliverables through another Atlas Workbench. And so it took a little time to kind of come around to the idea of what the purpose was for and things of that nature. But when you really get down to brass tacks, it is a good program, and it's helping set the standard for what our final deliverables need to be, where they need to be stored, and how we need to be organized so everything's consistent across the department. So what is the final plans and plan review with this new system? So the final plans will continue to be uploaded to the SharePoint Let Prep and contractors and standards to provide a standardized plan review comments. I think maybe one of the differences is the review comments, which should be uploaded in Atlas, and this process will help support fewer efforts and improve efficiency in the Let Prep reviews. So Power BI is I'm sure that's like the new buzzword going around. I know my division, Division 5, some other divisions are kind of in Division 4, I believe, is really kind of diving down deep into what Power BI can do. And we have a lot of softwares. We have SAP, we have pre-construction, we have HiCams, that's monitoring all these different things. And it's always been a struggle if you want to know certain things, you have to go to this software. And the beautiful thing about Power BI is it allows all those tools to be brought into one data source, and then it can be built to whatever output you're looking for. And so in this instance, we're utilizing Power BI to generate this PS&E checklist. This is automated. And so like on a dime, I think maybe, next day, our project level readiness, your PS&E checklist as things are uploaded into the system is going to be updated on an hourly or daily basis. It allows customized project program level dashboards for leadership. I know my my utility engineer is taking and working with Wendy Smith and some other folks to really generate a really useful Power BI tool that shows all of our utility conflicts on every project. It has all the different utility companies, where they are, where they stand. In my division, we have 4 coordinators, and so every coordinator has their own dashboard where they're managing their sites. And so this is a really powerful tool to take all those different data sources and put them into one dashboard that's outward facing. So I'm really excited about how Power BI is going to come in and really help us be more efficient and more, just data, front, showing. And this also, helps leadership, understand where projects are at a big picture. They don't need to know the day-to-day basis or, the details. I kind of describe it as the 30,000-foot view. You need to be able to describe to your division engineers, to your project development engineers, to the chief's office where we are, and look at something in a quick manner. And so Power BI is going to be that tool for us, and more importantly for this, it's going to generate our PS&E checklist. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Leilani.
Thank you. Thank y'all for being here early this morning. And Brian, no offense taken, it was a hard sell, to be honest with you. We put it out there, got a lot of good input back and feedback. We had really thick skin, and y'all really helped us improve it over time. So I appreciate that. So Atlas, and I did tell, I said I had to pull my glasses out because I've been here long enough, I can't read without them on these computer screens anymore. So accessing the Atlas workbench. Who in here has been on Atlas before? Raise your hand. Good. So this will be easy peasy for y'all. It's just a new tab in Atlas. You log in using your DOT credentials. You navigate to your Project Connect site. You open your Atlas Workbench tool. It's in that list of drop down right in the middle of your screen. You click on Atlas Workbench. You accept the disclaimer. That disclaimer is important because it tells you, if you never read it, stop and read it one time because the lawyers looked at that, and so it is important. Then you have your basic project info page will load, and then you navigate to the PS&E checklist tabs on the bottom left menu. So for the PS&E checklist automation using it, it's going to have the same thing you're used to seeing on your hard copy PS&E checklist. 8 different tabs: the key documents, final plans, the plan review comments, corresponding docusets, roadway supporting documents, the ICTs. Then you have a spot for additional information or items, and then also some text for your incomplete items. Each of your tabs there you see is going to have similar sections. You'll have collapsible and open sections, so it'll be easy to navigate. You're going to have underlined headers that break up the different sections within each tab. And then you're going to have what we call controls. Yes, no radio buttons, you'll answer questions. A box where you can upload your deliverable or your files. It'll be PDFs or document sets. And then you're going to have dates, and you'll have a pick list, in particular for your quantities. So You establish your required deliverables. This is what your PM and your project team is going to do early on in the project. And so you're going to go through each section of the PS&E checklist, and there are questions. Is this required or not? You're going to indicate if that deliverable is expected for the project by selecting the yes or no radio button. Click the save button. I've done this a million times. Busted through there, did all my stuff, closed it down, and didn't save it. Well, now we give you two questions at the end. If you go in there and change something and you don't hit save, it pops up. Do you want to save what you just did? And if you say no, then it's going to say, are you sure? That's how many times I did it without saving. And so when you enter your work, hit your save button and you won't get the pop-ups at the end. Click the save button. This should be done, selecting your deliverables that are required for your project should be done initially when developing the scope of your project with your design firm and your project team. You can go back and change those answers if you get more information during project development or if something different comes up. They're not set in stone, but they're indicating to you, your PEF, your managers, what is expected for that project in particular. Then, as your project develops, you're going to upload those deliverables. The SME or the project team member that actually produced those deliverables are typically the ones that upload it, whether it's your PEF or in-house team. Click the Browse button beside that deliverable. Navigate to where you have that stored on your computer or your email, wherever you have it, and hit the Save button. If it's a document set, you can load multiple documents in that same one, and it's already added the first one. It's going to say Add More Files. So instead of clicking Browse, you'll hit Add More Files, hit the Save button. I'm going to keep repeating that because you know how many times I didn't do it. So that's the easiest thing. You just load in here. Instead of, like Brian said, you're used to working in your Connect site and SharePoint, and you had to go in there and load it in SharePoint. The only thing different now is you're coming to Atlas Workbench, you're loading it in these control boxes and hitting your Save button. What that does, it puts it in the same folder, in the same library, every time, no matter who's doing it. It gives it the same name for the same folder or the same file, no matter who's doing it or where it's being done if it's central or division, no matter which PEF does it. They all get the same name. They all get tagged automatically, where you used to have to go in there and tag them yourself. They get tagged automatically, correctly, and they all go to the same place in SharePoint every time. Now, you don't have to go to SharePoint to see them. You can see it right there in Workbench, and it'll be a hyper blue link there. But, as Brian mentioned, we have Power BI that's going to help with that too. Completing your final plan set items. Right now, final plans are still uploaded directly to SharePoint per the current process. In Atlas Workbench, you're going to go in when you first indicated whether it's required or not. You're going to go in there and see if it's completed or not. So once you load those completed final plan sets in SharePoint, you're going to go in there and say, yes, it's completed. That way it shows up on your Power BI dashboard that you've completed that work. Special provisions, if applicable, will be loaded in the Atlas Workbench. Then you're going to select where your quantities were, pick AWP or PET, and I think everybody's going to be moving to PET eventually. The SME that did the acceptance puts their name in and puts their date. When we were developing this, that was one of the pieces of information that was really hard to track down after the fact, is who did it. So if you're the SME accepting those plans, go in there, put your name and date in. That's going to show up on the report. Then you have a comment section that are free text. You can add some qualifying information in there if you have it. Always hit save when you get finished. This means all your items for your PS&E will then be loaded, and you can report out on them. You have a place there for free text for incomplete items. So if you do get to your PS&E time, and there's something, like you said, that permit's coming in, it's supposed to be there Monday, it's not on there right now, you can say what the deliverable is, like the permit, what actions may be needed, the responsible party, the expected date you think is coming in, and then some free text for comments. That's just to help explain for those looking at it what may be missing and what you, as the project manager or the project team, is expecting that turnaround to be. So now, This is where you get the payoff for doing something different. Instead of going into SharePoint and loading your files, you can be loading it through Atlas and hitting that save button. Now you get the report. Because of that data governance, of the consistent file naming, file location, and tagging, you can get this Power BI dashboard. So the dashboard link is under pre-construction announcements on the Connect page. Brian, I think he's in here somewhere, Brian Oliphant, through his magic, just got it loaded on the left-hand side under Tools also. So if you look under Tools on the left-hand side of your Connect page, it's going to have like Atlas Search Tool, Atlas Screening Tool, then it's going to say Atlas PS&E Tool. So you got at least 2 places you can access it now, but you can get them from your Project Connect page. While you're in there working, you don't have to go anywhere else to get it. The first page is a quick reference guide. If you haven't used Power BI, it shows you some of the different parts and pieces and how to navigate in it. And then you open the PS&E checklist by project. It's one of the first pages listed on the left-hand side of the menu by clicking on it. And you'll see there's several pages there in each Power BI dashboard. The first thing you do is navigate to your project. The top right-hand corner where it says project, you type your TIP or your bridge number, not bridge structure number, your TIP number in there, select your project, and this will load with your project. The information across the top is being pulled from SAP. Verify that is the correct information for the project you're working for. The table replicates what the PS&E checklist did by section, by header, by question, and everything to the right of that center bar are the responses or the uploads you put in Workbench. So the left is replicating the PS&E checklist hard copy. The right is the responses you put in. So reading the table from left to right, you have the group, sections, and header. All of those come straight from the PS&E checklist. So if you're accustomed to using that, you'll find each one of those in here. Then it's your questions. Was this required? Was this completed? All those questions you hit those radio buttons on are there. Then you'll have the answers to those columns. Yes, no. Yes, it's required. No, it's not required. Yes, it's completed. Then you have a place where you can put in the name of specific documents. That would have been in the text field when you're uploading your deliverable, and it shows up here. That's particularly useful for things like utility agreements or municipal agreements, where you may have several of them, or may have one, but they're different on every project. So there's not a pre-selected list there. So you can list out your multiple utility or rail or municipal agreements or anything else where you may have multiple ones. Then you have your link to the upload. This is where you, like Brian pointed out, you don't have to go through SharePoint and hunt and peck and try to find it anymore. Not only is it in Atlas and a hyperlink, this link here shows up. When it's been completed and loaded, you can click on this and it'll take you directly to your file or to your document set folder. You don't have to go and hunt for it anymore. It goes directly to it right here in the report. It'll report out on your SME name and the accepted date, and then your quantities, AWP, PIC, or PET. And then you can print it. I know we still, all of us that have been around for quite a few years, still sometimes like to walk around with a hard copy or even a PDF that you could email somebody. So you can, there's an export and a print function in the top left if you want to use that. The beauty of the Power BI dashboard is, though, anybody on your project team can access it online, live. You don't have to have a printed copy. You don't have to email it to anybody. It's there. You log in, go to your project, and it comes up. Right now, we were doing one time a day upload, or refresh, not upload, refresh. We just got it to, thanks to the IT team, down to an hour. So right now, you have an hour, every hour refresh. And we're really pushing them hard to get down to 15 minutes. We may hit some technology issues there, but that's our goal for management, is to have it as close to live as possible. And so we're pushing them hard to get to 15 minutes. We're pretty sure 30 minutes is doable, but we'll see. But right now, you got an hour refresh. So the next page on this, that was your project, by project page. On the left-hand side, there's multiple pages already pre-set up. The other one is the 15-month list meeting report. Data here includes the CPL data, project data from SAP. It shows projects that are 15 months centrally let projects are in the list. And you can see, you can scroll down through these. There's summaries at the top. There's graphics you can click on. Power BI, you click on something and you can drill down in it to get more definition, or you can leave it very general. Like Brian could click on his division and get just that division information if he wanted to. The page, if you scroll over on the to the left on that bottom where you have each project listed, you'll see it looks for things that are typically or have been potential holdups in projects. Permits, and I worked in that unit I've worked in EAU till like 2 weeks ago, I guess it is now. And so permits are notorious for coming in at last minute because of the agency review time. Certifications, consultations, any of the agreements, those are highlighted on the left-hand side, then they're color-coded. If they've been submitted, they're showing up in green. You can glance at it, you're good to go if you're green. If they're in red, it means it's missing. And so this is to be a quick glance at that 15-month time frame to see, hey, do I have those critical things that are needed that sometimes hold up my project? So we got this presentation we're doing today. We've got a Lunch and Learn webinar coming up to give you some more detailed information. We're doing outreach right now. I've been started calling teams. Like Lee said, this is implemented on the September 2026 LET. And so we've got the team members, September out through December, listed out, and I'll be calling each one of you, setting up times if you want to walk through it specifically with your team, your PEF group, your in-house staff, whoever you have. We've done one already. I don't know if Jake's here today, so we've done one. We've got a couple more set up, and I've got phone calls out to others. So those will be coming up, outreach to specific groups. But the webinar, anybody can join it and get additional information and ask questions. Then we have a set of job aids that we'll post to the project management website, along with any other material. Katrina's graciously offered to put it on the page so everybody can get access to it. You'll have those job aids. There's two one-page job aids, both from the PM perspective and then from the contract and standard staff perspective. So you can look at both of those, and then there's the more detailed ones with screenshots that'll walk you through every step if you want that. That is our conclusion today. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can always reach us at atlas@ncdot.gov, or you have our DOT emails. You can reach out to us. Phones are sketchy sometimes, so I wouldn't suggest a phone, but email is great, either at Atlas or at our regular DOT emails. Did anybody have any questions here today? Yes. And I didn't introduce our GFT team sitting at the end of the table. If you got technical questions, Jenna's going to be our girl down there.
My question is on file override. We know that one of the benefits of Atlas Bench is consistent file naming convention. Mm-hmm. So what happens if you update a file, through Atlas Bench? How will you know that the file reflected in the pre-let is the current file, other than the date and the time? Will it also override it? Thank you.
Yes. So, good question. So if you went in there and loaded a single PDF document, it will record who did it by your NCID and the date and the time you did it. And so you, as the subject matter expert who's completed that, will load that there. Everybody else can see it and see the date and the time. Now, let's say something happened. You're like, I loaded the wrong one. Or the project went on for a couple of years and you had to redo something. You'll go back in there and load the new one. Right out in the same place, hit browse, load, and you'll see the latest. Only the latest will show up on your workbench. Only the latest will show up in your Power BI. Your old one will be archived automatically in SharePoint, so you don't lose it. So you don't lose it, but it's archived. You can go into SharePoint, hit the 3 little buttons, go down to the history, and see all the archived ones. But you will always have the latest one will be the hyperlink. Always the latest one will be the link in the Power BI dashboard. Does that answer your question? Okay. Thank you. That was a good question.
Got another one back here.
Testing. All right. Thank you. Very exciting stuff. Quick question. If I have an active project that I'm looking to use this deliverable or the PS&E checklist, is Atlas looking for a specific naming convention in order to check that box? Or if I have existing deliverables, I need to re-upload them through the Atlas workbench in order for that to be living?
Yes, if you have an existing project and you've already put your deliverables directly into SharePoint, you'll need to re-upload those through the Atlas workbench. And that's one of the things we offer help with. If you need it, we can help you walk through that. Or if you need some manpower, we can offer some manpower if you have a lot of files to do that with. Excuse me. But yes, you would reload those through Atlas Workbench, and then you can go back. So if you don't want duplicate files, you can go into SharePoint and delete your old ones once you re-upload them.
Okay, thank you. And a follow-up question. If I were to, or someone were to, say there was an addendum to a document or an agreement and we upload that manually, or someone removes it accidentally, is Atlas looking for that file and naming convention to still be there? So like if I delete a document or an agreement, since it was originally uploaded through Atlas, is that check still there? Or if it's removed, if it's no longer there, it's going to have an X and saying, hey, this deliverable is now missing?
If you loaded it through Atlas and then you went into SharePoint and deleted it, then it's going to be looking for it. You're right. If you load it through SharePoint and you never loaded it through Atlas, the only way Atlas will recognize it is if you have the exact naming convention that Atlas gives it. So if you load a file with the old naming convention, Atlas will ask you, hey, this doesn't match the standard. We're going to rename it. Is that okay? You check yes. It renames your file, loads it into SharePoint. And so then your file is going to have the correct name, the correct tags, and the correct placement in the folder structure.
Okay. I think so. So to clarify, if I upload a document through Atlas and then tomorrow I delete it off of SharePoint, Atlas will say that this is now missing?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yes, it will.
Are there any other questions for Lee or Brian or Leilani? PS&E checklist. Go. For the lunch and learn. If you don't mind, can you just, they're recording.
All right. Good morning. Good presentation. For the lunch and learn, how will that be distributed? Do you know the time frame for that?
We do not have it scheduled yet. It'll go out in the regular advertisement. Value management, I don't know if anybody from value management's in here. They usually do the advertisement for that. And so I think that's on the newsletter, and there's emails that go out and different ways that they advertise those.
We do. It's in the employee newsletter. Also, you can sign up to be on our list to get notifications for that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
But that date has not been scheduled yet, but it will be.
Go on our website.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else? If not, we'll move on to our next tool.
Thank you. And I want to thank our GFT team for the hard work that they've done on this. Nicole and Jeff Wren's group and Katrina and everybody else that has contributed to this. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate as everybody can see, the valuable tool that's created there and the consistency that it brings to the projects is a great asset moving forward as we work through this. The next tool that we have today is the right-of-way preliminary cost estimate tool that you heard again yesterday. Some plugs for that yesterday, and we have Brad Bass with our right-of-way unit and Tom Lingenmeyer with GFT. And I think Brad's going to lead off for us this morning. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good morning. It's kind of good to see some old faces I haven't seen in a while. Because I'm kind of an old timer now. I never thought I'd be an old timer at this point in my life, but here I am. I'm excited this morning. Some of you probably heard yesterday, I don't get excited a whole lot. But I'm excited this morning to introduce Tom Linsemeyer and his Gannett Fleming team, who we have worked tirelessly over the last, I would say, year and a half or so to develop this tool. I don't know how many of you have been around for a while, but securing a project estimate has always been a very cumbersome process over the years. I can remember when I was in the division office, we used to get calls. I think I saw John Ollinger here today, or somebody from the division staff. Years ago, they used to call and say, hey, I need an estimate for this project. And you never know what you would get. You never know what it would look like. There was no rhyme or reason for how somebody came up with a project estimate. So what we decided to do now is create an internal DOT internal tool, which we're calling it the preliminary estimate tool. And this is just a start. We're actually, what you're going to hear this morning is how we're going to do preliminary estimates. It's going to make it very transparent. It's going to make it more efficient. It's going to make it easier to secure, and I think it's going to be a very valuable tool for the department. And also, in the future, we also plan to use it for late-stage estimates too, because right now it's just preliminary estimate tools. And so we're excited about it, and we thank Gannett Fleming for all the hard work, so I'm going to turn it over and let Tom take you through it, and we'll answer any questions afterwards.
Thanks, Brad. All right, let's get, how do I get slides here? Okay. Appreciate that, Brad. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this. We're going to talk about the preliminary tool today, but we have worked with the right-of-way unit for about a year prior to getting into the preliminary tool to try and streamline the late-stage tool. And when we got into the preliminary process, we wanted to integrate the two. So they both had the same type of intake, and the same type of attachments that you were needing to submit. So any time that you needed a cost estimate for the right-of-way, for your project, you were going to the same spot, you were submitting the same thing, and your output was more or less going to be the same. So our problem statement, Brad hit on it. It was a very disparate way that cost estimates were being requested. There was a lot of manual processes. It was coming in through emails. It was coming in through Teams messages. It was, we were getting a bunch of attachments in an email. We were getting, hey, one line, can I get a cost estimate for project XYZ? So we had to kind of generate some manual processes, some checklists we were running through. So what we really needed to do is streamline that intake. Create a business process workflow around intake, processing, and approval, and then integrate some automation and some tools in there to make it easier for the right-of-way unit to process those, and make it more transparent for you and the requesters and the project managers, the project teams, to know where their cost estimates were sitting in the process, when they were supposed to expect them. So some of the purposes here, so some of my slides are pretty wordy, but that's by design because I think it would be beneficial to take this home and be able to read through it and really read through what's happening, at what stage, why we did it, and I think it would be really beneficial as a return, kind of like a pseudo job aid, even though we do have supporting documentation on the right-of-way SharePoint site. So then this is kind of reading through what I was just saying. Cost estimates were generated externally, and there wasn't a lot of flexibility or visibility into that. There were separate intakes for preliminary and late stage. Requests were initiated or had limited transparency, so you didn't know where you were in the process from request to approval. Turnaround times were inconsistent. That's one of the biggest pain points that we heard that we really were trying to improve. You never knew when the cost estimate was coming back. We were hearing 4 months sometimes for preliminary estimates, and there's no boots on the ground during preliminary estimate process, so it didn't make sense that it was taking that long. And there was no database to track this stuff. It was just kind of done, thrown in a folder, and emailed back. There was no ability to recall data, to look at the data, to look at any type of reporting, to go back to the Power BI that Leilani and the Atlas folks were talking about. We created a Power BI dashboard so that reporting was going to be a little bit easier from a project manager perspective, so you can see what's going on, and then also from a higher level reporting perspective, so that the right-of-way unit knows how they're doing and where things are in the process. So now there is a tool that is leveraging NCDOT data that is giving the department full control over this system. We're not sending it out. It's not external anymore. We're not sending it out somewhere else and just kind of waiting for it to come back. We're not fully reliant on the estimators and stuff in the late stage. So it's really, it's giving NCDOT full control and the ability to kind of know where things are in the process. We have one unified intake. So like I said earlier, there's one spot, there's intake that's going to be available for requesters, so that any type of right-of-way cost estimate request that's needed, you're going to go to one spot. Turnaround times are reduced drastically. Transparency is improved. We're leveraging GIS data, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but we're leveraging GIS to generate the initial preliminary request that's going to be reviewed and approved by a subject matter expert. That's really creating a lot of automation, and that's what's reducing most of the turnaround times there. And like I just mentioned, every estimate is going to be reviewed and verified by a subject matter expert to provide a verified cost estimate that you can put into SAP for your cost estimate for right away. So high level benefits, and I'll get into a little bit more details moving forward, is a new tool and new business process. So we detailed out the business process for preliminary cost estimates, and then we created this new tool to be able to reduce the turnaround times for those. 2 would be integrating to the current late stage process. So if you're familiar with the current intake form that we have been using for a couple of years for the late stage, we mimicked that as well as much as we could for the preliminary. So now, everything, you're going to be looking at the same thing, whether it's preliminary or late stage, so you're going to be doing the same thing. We're integrating the proposed right-of-way polygon shapefile requirement here. Benefit is reducing turnaround times, but another benefit is, you know that you only have to attach one thing to your request, and that's going to be your shapefile, and we're going to be able to do the rest from there. And then the verified cost estimate output, that's important, so you know that it's verified, so you know that you can trust that and put it in SAP to get your cost verification memo. So access is the first thing. We've thrown it a bunch of different places so that you can't miss it. We've always had it on the right-of-way SharePoint site, so it's still going to be there, and that'll throw you to the splash screen, so you can pick whether it's preliminary or late stage that you want to request. And we also have access to documentation right there on that site as well. We have it on the project management resources site, a link to the intake form, and also a link to documentation. And we put it on the Connect sites, on Express Design Connect sites, and on the pre-construction SharePoint site. So we have it in a bunch of different spots that will let get navigation pane, so you're not going to be able to miss it. So to detail the process, a new streamlined workflow. So it introduces automated process, cutting down on manual entry. We have this one splash screen, this one unified spot that you go to. We've mimicked the second point. We've mimicked the PDN business rules and language there. So stage 1, 2A, and 2B, that's what you see in SharePoint when you're inputting your cost estimates. So we wanted to mimic those. 1 and 2A is going to send you to the preliminary tool, and we have that detailed in parentheses there next to the selections. 2B is going to send you to the late stage tool. We have, I'll get this a little bit more detail later, but the transparent calculations, you'll see what is going into your cost estimate, percent acreage, the cost of each parcel, how we calculated the cost for each parcel based on the amount of parcel that's impacted, if it's touching a building, whatever. We'll have that in there. Again, leveraging GIS data and a subject matter expert validation. And what I have highlighted over here on the right is this is our committed turnaround times. Preliminary stage or preliminary tool is 30 days from request, and then based on size for the late stage tool, we have a 45 to 90 day based on the size of the project. I wanted to include kind of an abbreviated high-level workflow diagram here for y'all. You have your requester coming into your splash screen. They select late stage or preliminary. It kicks it over here. What I have detailed out is preliminary, so it goes to the right-of-way unit. We process it through the GIS tool. Here in the box is all of our outputs. It pushes it out, stores it down here on the bottom, stores it in a database in an AGOL shapefile or an AGOL shapefile, and then the top, that's the output that gets reviewed by the subject matter expert, verified by the right-of-way unit, and sent back to you. So intake, this is your requester's workflow. Single point of intake, this is what you guys are probably familiar with seeing if you've done a late stage tool request in the past. Very similar. We just have one extra field to input your spot ID. You should have a spot ID for your project at this point. So very similar there. Shared intake form, consistent data. So like I said, we only have one additional field. All the other stuff is pretty much the same. So you're going to be inputting all the same stuff, including that shapefile. That's the only thing that you're going to be including. There's details down there for what type of files that need to be in that zipped shapefile deliverable. So, and we'll get into that a little bit more for down the line. And then full project visibility. We have a place to put your spot and STIP ID. So if you need to request a preliminary estimate, you need a 2-year renewal or a two-year update, and then you got to do a late stage request. If you're putting your project numbers in there every time, we're going to be able to go back and review and check how that has progressed throughout the project lifecycle or timeline. Shapefile standards. So this is going to be new for some folks. A lot of people do have the support within their firms or within some of other consultants that they're working with, or within their units or their divisions to be able to generate these. But if you don't, we have a lot of documentation. We have a template that's very easy to use on what you need when you're developing that shapefile from your design file. And we have geometry requirements, content exclusivity. We only need the right-of-way, the proposed right-of-way, and any easements if they've been identified at that time that needs to be submitted. Anything else is not needed. And then what I have here too is we're willing to provide support to any requester that needs it. If you don't have the ability to create that shapefile, you don't know how, you don't know what to do, we can meet with you, talk you through it, or we could just generate it for you and get the tool running itself. So, and I want to highlight the next 2 slides are how these things are getting generated. this is a little behind the scenes in the weeds, but I just wanted to be we want to be transparent of how we're doing this. So that shapefile is coming in. We're using ArcGIS Pro to run a toolbox, run a tool to intersect with the buildings layer, statewide parcel layer, again, leveraging NCDOT data that we have access to. And then that generates these three files down here at the bottom, your project right-of-way boundary, your parcel sections that are impacted by right-of-way, and your impacted acquisition parcels. So it's generating a layer for the parcels that are impacted. It's cutting off all the spots that are within the proposed right-of-way that's selected, and then the right-of-way itself. So, and that's how the calculations are being generated. It calculates parcel acreage, total take versus partial take based on the criteria that if input in the tool, like if it hits a building, it's going to be a total take. If it doesn't, it's a partial take based on the percentage of right-of-way that is impacted on that parcel. Again, kind of getting into the weeds, but this is the stuff that we're reviewing and analyzing that this tool is doing by itself, that we put in the front end. So we just put it in, run it, and it spits out an output. That output goes into an experience builder that the subject matter expert reviews this dashboard on a parcel level, parcel by parcel analysis, and is able to provide their notes, provide their review, make any recommendations to the project manager if things need to be changed. They can change things themselves as well. They can change costs. They can change the displacement type, whether take it from a no impact, partial impact, total impact. This is kind of where they do their review on a parcel by parcel basis. Once they're done with this, we have the verified cost estimate output is generated. All three of those tabs down there at the bottom, that's what you're going to see here. This is what you're familiar to seeing. If you have done a preliminary request in the past, we kind of mimicked a lot of what the older output was. So we have a cover sheet that's high level. That's all your rolled up data, total parcels, total costs, any consultant services costs, any relocation or damage costs that are associated to each parcel. The subject matter expert can still go through parcel by parcel and deliver that type of information and data. Second tab we have on there is a summary view. It's a little bit more detailed. It has detailed parcel information for each parcel, landowner, acreage of the parcel, acreage impacted. It has a calculation in there. And what I do want to highlight down there on the bottom right, you can see a red highlighted cell. So we put some checks in there, and if there's a cost that is generated that's over, like I think it's 500,000, it gets flagged, so the subject matter expert can look into that one a little bit closer and see if there's anything that might be negatively impacting it, or if something, maybe the data was incorrect. And they can adjust things accordingly. It's also for the project managers, the requesters, when they get it back, you can see that those are your high dollar parcels. We also have a highlight as well. You don't see it here. I think it's yellow, or if it's no impact and it's a 0, so you draws your eyes to those as well. On this tab too, the subject matter expert has a parcel notes column to provide information to the project manager about each parcel if there's something that he really thinks that needs to be tending some additional attention. And then the final view, the final tab is a detailed view that has everything all spread out. It has all your damages, all your consultant services per parcel, relocation costs that the subject matter expert associates, and a lot more detailed information about the project and each parcel itself. And the final thing to kind of continue with the theme of transparency, we've generated this Power BI dashboard to show requesters and anybody who has access the status of each request who requested it, where it is in the process, your project numbers, spot ID, STIP ID if you have it. If it's on time, if it's late, you can click on here to see that if there's anything that's been rejected or that's been approved, you can see everything on there. There's filters off to the right. So this is really just trying to provide the department with transparency of where we are in the process and what we're doing and how we're doing it, to kind of incite questions and see if there's any improvements, and also reduce the amount of communication that potentially is coming into the right-of-way unit. You can just come here and see your status. You don't need to be calling them on the phone all the time, taking them away from doing their work and asking questions that you can get the answers to right here. So you have your list view. That's the top right one. That shows everyone that's in process right now. And then you also have a detail view, so you can select one. Maybe you have one that's in process that you submitted 2 weeks ago, and you want to see where it's at. You can select it and hit the drill down in there, and you can see more detailed project information for those. So yeah, to wrap it up, NCDOT has really tried to take ownership of the cost estimate request process and do everything that they could to provide transparency to you and leadership on how they're doing it, how they are doing, period, on it, and where it is in the process, how the costs are being generated, and really kind of standardize intake, standardize and streamline the workflow, and reduce turnaround time. So that is all I've got. I know we only got a couple minutes for questions, but I got links here.
Has anybody got any questions on the right-of-way?
Hey, Tom, this is Joel Perlin from the Project Management Unit. Really appreciate this new process. I've definitely noticed a quick turnaround. I do have a few questions, though, about it. First thing, you mentioned that you are able to separate your permanent right-of-way versus your easements. How do we do that, though, with the shapefile? What I've noticed is when I've turned in, I seem to be in the unique position where every time I get to be one of the first that gets to use the new system. So I always have a few questions. But for the permanent easements versus permanent right-of-way versus the easements, what's the best way to submit those shapefiles so those actually do get separated in our estimates? It's very hard to tell. If you go back to slide 12, actually, we can reference that a little bit. But it was very hard to tell with the one that I got back whether permanent right-of-way was being assessed or if easements were being assessed on my report.
Yep, so it's based on, so the first question is how can you submit just your right-of-way versus your right-of-way and your easements? It should come that way from your design file when you generate the shapefile, and it should be labeled differently in the shapefile when it's submitted. And then based on those labelings in the shapefile when it's submitted from the design file, we should be able to detail it out here.
Okay, so with one shapefile, you are able to break those out. You don't need two separate shapefiles.
It should be labeled the same within that shapefile. It's like two different layers in that shapefile, basically.
Great. So that might be something that I'll work with the firm, because just a little bit of
we can work together.
And that's my follow-up question. Then it seems to be that whenever I have a question, it's really hard to figure out who I should talk to. It would be really beneficial to actually talk to the estimator that made some of those judgments and decisions. But the report I got actually looked very similar to this one. There wasn't a name that I can talk to. There wasn't a date on there. So I just want to make sure that that's something that's going to be updated. And what do you recommend as far as contacting the subject matter expert that did the estimate? What is the best procedures to do that in the
It'll
future?
be if you reach out to myself, Chris Coughlin, Tracy Jackson, just email all three of us, and we'll either answer your question or we could set something up with the subject matter expert and you so that we can kind of walk through the process and answer your questions.
Great. I think I've been going direct to Tracy, but I'll be sure to get all three of you
Get all
in the
three of
future.
us in there just in case, she might not be working at it later.
Perfect. And then my final question, in the project management unit specifically, we are responsible for doing a cost estimate comparison, which means we need to take the last right-of-way estimate and then compare it with the current estimate, and really trying to figure out why those cost differences have changed. And there again, it might be beneficial to have somebody that we can talk to see why something was estimated differently this time around than the last time. So just some feedback for the process. But overall, again, really, really excited about the turnaround time and getting the new procedures figured out. Thank you.
Great.
So just a quick question. My name is Nathan Adema. I like the way you said you kind of flag a parcel that's more than 500,000. That's a way of checking. You know, for a project manager, when we receive information or we receive right-of-way estimate, do you recommend, what other ways do you recommend that we can check, the estimates, the correctness or the accuracy of the estimates?
So we do have the flagging on there. Yellows if it's 0, I think, and reds if it's over 500. And then there's also another level of review that's provided, or feedback that's provided, I guess, by the subject matter experts using the SME notes column. So they'll provide notes for each one of those parcels. Again, the estimate itself is being generated off of the data that's provided by the counties. So it's only as good as the data that's been provided. And then the review is done by the subject matter expert on additional damages and total to partial take context. When it comes to the actual costs, like, I think we had a meeting yesterday about the actual costs of parcels versus what it actually is, what the tax value actually is. We have no way of knowing that from the data. So that in-depth review has to be done in additional context that we can't necessarily provide. I don't know if you have any other additional comments on that.
Well, basically what we're talking about is a preliminary estimate, right? The late stage estimate is when you're going to get more into more details, more appraisal level type review of parcel. So what you're talking about here is preliminary estimate. We do have a subject matter expert who's very knowledgeable, who goes through each one of these and tries to flag problems that he sees in GIS or Google Street View or site inspection or whatever. He goes through it and reviews it. But please don't get this confused with the late stage estimate. This is preliminary estimate. Late stage estimate is when you're going to get to more of the details, to more of the
Boots on the ground.
high level problems. And we're working. This technology is going to be utilized in the late stage estimate. We just haven't gotten it to that point yet.
Yeah, we'll be using GIS to generate that cost estimate worksheet that you guys are familiar with submitting, so that's not going to need to be submitted by the project manager. It's going to be generated by the GIS, and then getting into the process, boots on the ground folks, estimators, relocation directors, and getting into that more detailed review.
But it's still better than what we had before because we have the data. We know what it costs to acquire. We know what the renovation costs are. We know what the multipliers are. We have control of that data, so we can put it in the tool, working with time to adjust and make a preliminary estimate pretty accurate and standard cost.
Thanks.
Sorry, question I have. My favorite things to hear these days are stormwater ponds, leach fields, septic fields, things along those lines. So I was very curious from this right-of-way estimate tool, like if there's what looks to be a parking lot could actually be like an underwater storm basin, that has baskets and things along those lines. So very curious from like a septic standpoint, leach field standpoint, stormwater feature standpoint. How is this tool identifying those? Is that something that you expect us to provide those comments ahead of time that can be evaluated, or are we waiting for that submission to come back, and then we respond with, clarification.
So I think kind of to go off of what Brad was just saying, and this is a preliminary estimate for the project, right? So really what we're looking at is right-of-way impacted parcel, right-of-way area impacted per parcel, not getting into a lot of the specifics and details about decisions that might be made on that project, whether it be one way or the other, parking lot versus retention pond. So I don't think we're going into that level of detail at this stage.
But a subject matter can still flag it if he sees it.
Right, and that's in the notes, that'll be in the notes, so if he sees something like that, that's where we're providing him the ability to give you, the project manager, the requester, those notes in that section. Potential problems, yeah.
Are there any other questions?
On a recent, I guess, estimate that we received, the parcel numbers are still, I guess, randomly generated, 1 through whatever. Is there any opportunity to have parcel numbers from the plans representative in these estimates?
So that's been a common question that we've been trying to grapple with. What we've done is, instead of trying to pull those from the plans, we implemented a process of, I think it's west to east, north to south to generate those. So you're going to see them like this, or so it'll be easy kind of to be able to go one-to-one. So you're looking at the left of your project location, and you can go like this and go down the line.
Some of the problems that comes up is later on, if we go and get like a follow-up estimate, the property owners have changed, and if we're having to go back and try to figure out, well, which parcel has changed, who the new owner is, which one does it apply to, it's hard for us to go back and compare it. So if there's some way that we could tie those with the plans, it would really help.
So what we've done is for the late stage of GIS, the cost estimate worksheet's going to be generated on the late stage, so the next step, basically. If your project area is the same parcels, the numbers are going to be generated the same. So if you're looking at both your estimates side by side, the parcel numbers should be exactly the same, even if I don't know if parcel IDs change, but even if the parcel IDs change or the property owners change, they're not going to match the plans specifically, because it's kind of hard for the tool to be able to look at that and regenerate that. Now that's something that, like from an estimator's perspective in a late stage tool, like they can go in and renumber on the worksheet, and they could always renumber, because in the late stage tool, it's going to be your GIS shape files submitted plus your plan sheets. So they could always renumber them on the worksheet to match your plan sheets if they want to do it that way when they're reviewing and their boots on the ground and they're actually looking at each parcel on the ground.
Okay, thank you.
We've got time for maybe one more. Anybody else? Get you, and then I'll go to Debbie.
Hey, Tom. We were wondering, how are you handling the difference between the original plans being localized and the GIS data being on grid? Are y'all doing a shift to cover that?
How do you mean by that? I don't.
So all of your GIS data is on North Carolina State Planning grid, but your designs and everything have been localized. All that mapping data has been localized. And so Mark would take away that localization on there whenever he was doing these. And so we were wondering how y'all are handling that shift that's in there, because it could be a big shift.
I don't think we've seen that feedback come back yet, based on any of the projects that we've tested on and any of the submissions that have been submitted, because I think, like you said, that would be very drastically different, right? It's not just going to be a little bit of sliver here or there. Your right of way is going to be over here. It's not even going to touch a parcel.
Yeah, that was the problem that Mark ran into. He was seeing that there were times that the right-of-way wouldn't even touch the parcel, even though we knew it did.
Mark Schwartz, right?
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to Lindsay and Sean, who built the actual GIS tool. There might be some air handling that they're doing on the back end, well, I guess on the front end, when that comes in, to reproject it onto where it's supposed to be. So, but I can come see me after so I can contact you, because I'll ask that question to make sure that we're handling that.
Yes, I wanted to ask how control of access was built into the program as far as value.
Control access, we didn't do anything in the preliminary tool, I don't think, right? Yeah. So I think that's something that gets put into consideration for our late stage tools, but for the preliminary, I don't think we take into account.
And is there like a multiplier being added at the end of when you get the summation of all the costs, because this is such a preliminary estimate?
1.8 is our, 1.8.
1.8, okay, thank you.
All right, with that, appreciate it. That's a lot of good questions and feedback. The names and the emails are up here, so they'll certainly be around the rest of the day. So feel free to reach out to them with any questions. If this didn't sit in, it will be another session just like it this afternoon. If you're interested, or some of your colleagues, let them know to sit in this afternoon. But first of all, let's give the presenters a round of applause, please. Appreciate the information they've given us on these two valuable tools as we work through the specifics and to make those better from day to day. As far as moving forward, we have a networking break. Did you have something, Allison? Lunch and Learn.
I meant to say that right when I came up.
And I think it was plugged on Leilani's. Good point. Thank you for that.
You get to hear me talk about it even more.
There you go.
Thanks,
Just a couple of things as we depart this morning. There is a networking break from 9:45 to 10:15, and then our next round of breakout sessions will begin at 10:15. So there's several that you can choose from if you look at your agenda. So thank everybody for their attendance this morning.